Cyberspace is like an accepted hallucination, experienced daily by billions of legitimate operators and children alike in every nation. A graphic representation of data extracted from banks of every computer in the human system. Unthinkable complexity, lines of light, clusters and constellations of data scattered across tender minds, like city lights receding. Greetings of the day, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you on behalf of DPS Indirapuram family as we celebrate the 19th edition of Safer Internet Day on this insightful platform that aims to discuss the paradigms of a safe cyberspace. My earnest gratitude is due to our distinguished parents who have spared their valuable time to steer this discussion. We express our gratitude to them for extending support and cooperation at every step. Thank you. I am pleased to be joined by Mr. Shutipto Biswas. He is a Group A officer in Government of India and has been working with Comptroller and Auditor General of India for the last 25 years. I welcome you, sir. I extend my reverence to Mr. Suparno Banerjee for sharing his time with us. Mr. Suparno Banerjee is Senior Director at the New Delhi-based Center for Science and Environment. I'm honored to welcome Dr. Vipul Tyagi, Senior Consultant Psychiatrist and Psychotherapist. He is the Director at Sri Narayan Hospital and also President-elect for the Association of Psychiatrists of UP and Uttarakhand. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Safer Internet Day was a brainchild of the European Union's Safe Borders project, which highlights the topical issues surrounding the Internet. This year's Safer Internet Day 2022 is being celebrated with the theme All Fun and Games, Exploring Respect and Relationships Online. This day celebrates young people's role in creating a safer Internet, whether that is while gaming and creating content or interacting with their peers. On this note, let's start the discussion with a question that keeps puzzling us with its myriad shades. I would like to start with Dr. Vipul. Sir, we all are now connected with the internet like neurons in a giant brain. But then how come on internet a person is lonely and popular at the same time?
Trivedi, many cases it is true. In many cases it is not. Actually, it's a kind of dichotomy. And let us try to evaluate why this dichotomy is there.
Right.
If we go 30 years back, at that point of time, there was no such internet or internet personalities or internet identities. At that point of time, we used to have, real persons, real time interacting amongst themselves. And usually every person used to know around hundreds of people, 200, 300, 500, everyone would know such kind of persons.
Right.
And if you know only 30 to 50 such persons, you would be called a kind of socially inept, socially, isolated. That kind of remarks would come for that person if he knows only 30, 50. And now we fast forward to this generation at this point of time. Today, the generation is a millennium generation. And in this millennial generation, what you see is that if a person knows 30 to 50 people, you would call that person, wow, such a huge circle, such a huge social circle if you know in person so many, people at a time. And why so? Because now most of the persons, they have started connecting through other media, through social media, through online. Now they have got a different kind of personality, the online personality. So such persons, amongst all of us now, we have two kind of persona. One is an online persona, another is an offline persona. And we have more persons in our online persona, more followings in our online persona than the offline ones. And that's why this dichotomy that we were discussing. Actually, now when a person is having an online persona, in that he is able to present himself as more articulate, more witty, more, empathic. So that kind of person one is able to present himself with. But when that person has to have a one interaction, in-person interaction, that person is not able to give the best as he was able to give as an online person. So that kind of, that produces a kind of social anxiety. And if that social anxiety is there, one is trying not to interact one-to-one more and is having an online interaction more as compared to the offline one. So that kind of social anxiety would produce a lot of anxiety. And with that comes loneliness. And loneliness in itself is a huge problem, associated with a lot of physical, a lot of emotional turmoils, a lot of emotional ill consequences. So at every point of time, we must avoid having this kind of dichotomy. It is not that this dichotomy is always going to be there. If we have to ensure, if we try to ensure that our offline persona is as good as the online one, then that kind of dichotomy would not be there. We must ensure that we bloom locally as well. When we outreach to the global, we must bloom locally as well. Mind it, it is not possible this online persona to go away. It is going to grow. A person has to have now, if you see today's budget, finance minister has given more push to the digital thing. So it is going to grow and it has to be accepted as part of life. But at the same time, we must ensure that our offline persona does not fade away. We must make efforts to have group discussions. We must visit people. We must visit relatives. We must keep inviting them to our place. We must involve into group games. That kind of thing we must ensure. We must try to attend and call every person on every social occasions. If we could do that, then that dichotomy would not be there. One would, think of it 10 years from now. Children who are now in 15 or 20 years of age and are not those socially inept, they are very articulate when they are, online. But offline, they are socially inept, they feel awkward. If they start feeling this way, and after 10 years, 15 years, they become parents, then they are going to rear up children who are going to be more inept. That would increase, that gulf would increase, and we must try to ensure that this is not there. It is unfortunate if that loneliness keeps creeping in.
I think, sir, you're very right. And I think there's a need to have a harmony between these two personas that the children are establishing, and you can't help it. In the same line of thought, Banerjee, sir, I'm coming to you now. I feel that the internet is so big, so powerful, yet it is pointless at times. For some people, it has now become a complete substitute of life, just as Sir pointed out. So the adolescents seem to be increasingly losing themselves in this virtual world. How to strike a balance?
Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity, first of all. I'm really grateful. I have a small submission here with respect to what you just said. Internet is huge, very powerful, we all know that. But I don't think it is pointless. In fact, the impact that it is exercising on us and our children is huge and long term.
Yes, it is.
As I was also saying. And there are the good and bad sides to this. So, as you rightly say, for some it is a substitute for life almost. And they are quite addicted to it. And like all addictions, it is not a good thing. I think our children, our students, they do not fully understand the risks, first of all. On the other hand, as someone who deals in communications, very much so, I find it to be an extremely useful aid, at least in my work, in my personal life, what I'm doing. It's definitely a very powerful force over there. Unfortunately, here I would like to bring in this entire, the issue of the pandemic itself. Because of the pandemic and its pervasive influence, I would say, especially when it comes to children, this entire situation has really magnified and grown,
Absolutely.
From a situation where millions of children were probably already addicted to what it offers, what internet offers, multimedia, games, easy but not necessarily credible information. And then, of course, there is the darknet, the allure of what is called the darknet, etc. Internet has now turned into a pandemic in itself. But trillions are now hooked onto it. Lockdowns and curfews have taken a huge toll. And I find kids who were just marginally interested in it now being forced to spend hours on it, attending classes, seminars, etc., online all the time. I keep seeing it around me all the time, and even with my children. The question of striking a balance here is a tricky one, I feel.
Yes.
In a world which has turned almost completely digital, as sir was just now pointing out, and which is, going to probably be magnified, it is improbable to think that one's child won't as well, given the opportunity and the resources, turn towards the digital. I feel the responsibility for striking a balance here lies with two sets of managers. The first, I think, is the government, authorities, and by devolution, the entire education sector. This is a question that I've often asked. Why every time a crisis or even a semblance of crisis hits us, should schools and colleges be the first to close? I don't understand. We are just about waking up to this incalculable damage that it is doing to our children and their future. Why can't authorities, institutions, parents, why can't we all come together in a response to any crisis, not only this crisis, the pandemic that it is offering? Why can't we come together in any crisis which does not force such a closure? Let me give you the example of Sweden here. Sweden does not close its educational institutions throughout the pandemic, and it managed rather well, I would say. Open educational institutions will, I feel, work towards maintaining this balance between leading one's life almost entirely on the net and giving it a break with a little more inward and humane interactions within a campus, with friends, classmates, teachers, relations, like Dr. Shah was just talking about. And the second player here is someone like me or my other compatriots who are here right now, the parent. The time spent on internet, I feel, can be divided into what is necessary and cannot be avoided, like online studies, and in the current scenario mein jaisa ho raha hai, and what is avoidable. Can we parents reassign those times and spaces in our children's lives so that they understand the second category, which is avoidable, better, and work towards lessening? That is my submission, and that is my answer to your question.
I think on the same note, and I derive the crux that it's time to be responsible citizens, responsible teachers and parents, and
Right.
Positive and constructive adaptation, I think, is the key to also strike a balance. And there's no going away from the internet. It is here to stay.
True.
And the internet truly, in that sense, has transformed the world. It is like a big democracy because people can choose what they like. There is no getting away from it. So from gaming and chatting to streaming and video watching, young people are shaping the interactive entertainment spaces they are a part of. So Biswas sir, coming to you now. Could you share your perspective on how the children can effectively make use of this cyberspace so that they can extract maximum benefit out of it? Sir, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, panelists. Thank you, DPS. Thank you, Ms. Surbi. Let us take a step back. Just imagine a world without a cyberspace, and we are hit by this pandemic. Just think for a while. Schools are shut, colleges are closed, children are at home, parents are clueless. You see, government would have left with grappling questions that how to treat these 2 years, 2021, deemed to have studied or restart the studies after lapse of 2 years. Just think. So having the cyberspace amongst us has been a greatest boon, be it to the running of government, the ministries and their departments, offices, colleges and schools. We have seen cyber era taking over very comfortably. You see, during these 2 years, if you see in 2000, when children used to go to school, would come back and then would game a bit, would browse some internet, and then again go back to the physical, types of classes. While on the same space, the cyberspace was growing, mainly in the business world, corporate world. Ministries, governments, meetings were being held, but not among the children. Children, so to say, were more into what Suparno sir said, sometimes into, say, even blacknet also, because, the YouTube doesn't, have any barriers. You ask A, it gives you A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all sort of, answers. So we have seen the cyber era taking over very comfortably and meaningfully as the medium of education and schools. In schools and colleges have successfully, they have taken over. They have been teaching the students, conducting the exams, and there has been zero loss of academic year. That's the most important thing, that we have come, we have really taken, pandemic head on. If we really think that the children who were worst hit because government did not have any option, because children were the most vital apparatus of a country. So if we do not close the schools, children were going to hit, and pandemic hit us equally across the world. Nobody knew the nature of pandemic, whom it will hit, whom it will spare. So now we know that probably children had better immune power. Terry sir would agree with me that. So so they were spared. They were not that much hit by the. But during 2020, the government, the Medicare system, the ICMR, all across the world, WHO, so to say, they did not have a clue that whether it will hit the children. And since children are the people whom they cannot be always controlled. That like in office, if you are told that you wear mask, you wash your hands, fine. But children are, they are free. They are not that controlled lot. So government had to take that decision that close the school first. We will see what happens next, because life was important. So major breakthrough, I would say, amidst the pale and gloom of pandemic, is that we continued the academic years, except for some inherent questions and limitations what some panelists have just brought out. I would discuss, some other time, later maybe, so which is debatable. But just think, if the medium was not an option for us, then what? Now coming to the point of how effectively a child can use the cyberspace. To start with, I have some quotes. Albert Einstein said that the mind that opens to a new idea never returns to its original size. Another saying by Bernard Baruch goes like, millions saw the apple fall, but Newton asked why. You see, children have inquisitive minds. Their questions are unlimited. They have huge potential. Cyberspace allows them the right opportunity to keep and on asking, get answers and proceed, With very minimal effort on the part of the parents, the children can be let free in the digital arena to explore their world, their questions in the quest of becoming a global citizen. Now some benefits of online education, if you ask me, it starts from like children needed some break, Just feel what your child was doing before pandemic. Wake up at 6, go to school, the bus comes at 7, proceed to the school, come back by 3, proceed to the tuition, come back by 5, proceed to badminton, table tennis, swimming, dance, singing, vocals, etc., come back by 8, have some study at least for 2 hours for the next day's school, go to bed by 10, 10:30, 11. They do not have a space for themselves. They did not have any space for themselves that they want to pursue this, they want to pursue that. On top of that, with families running after their jobs, running after their livelihoods, there is no time that the child got with their family. Because if they do not sleep by 11, they miss the next day school. That's the life they were leading. So probably nature, I do not know, probably nature thought, or the Almighty, whosoever thought that children needed a break. People needed a break. The nature, the environment, the world, across, the globe, everybody of us needed a break. I'm working on a paper on natural resource accounting. I see how things have gone from bad to worse. So probably this is a time that children got a break from their hectic lifestyle. They can now sit at the comfort of their home and study. Cyber education is flexible, allows a child to study from comfort of their home, access education from anywhere. More coverage per session. My experience would go like this, when we were doing this natural resource accounting, then we were training physical, we were taking 10, 12, 15 officers at a time. That too, spending government funds, government money, flying from different parts of the country, coming in here, getting trained, going back. But now with the online, facilitation, we are training hundreds of them at the same time. They are sitting at their comfort of their offices, comfort of their home, less scope of hitting the pandemic, less traveling. You can be with your family, you can be with your office, with your work doesn't suffer. So, we have to give certain space to cyberspace. Yes, it has been important. So earlier it was only the teachers, and next is the parent. Yes, parents have the scope of continuously monitoring and guiding their pupils, because earlier it was only the teachers who had to guide and take care of the children in the maximum part of the day. About 8 hours, the children will be with the teachers. So good or bad, the teachers were responsible. A child would fall, a child would run, 3 of them would fall together. So, it was a hectic a worst part of the teacher's life that, along with teaching the students, we have to take care of their, welfare also. That what they eat, what they share, what they discuss, everything. So now it's a joint responsibility. Children are at home, teacher is online, teacher is on the other side of the screen, while you are this side of the screen, continuously monitoring and developing a child's mind, jointly with the teacher. So that, is an additional, benefit of e-learning. E-learning allows personalization, more attention to each question and effective dissemination of answers of teachers, because in the class, student will be asking, suppose in class 8, my daughter's class, there are 6 or 7, sections. All the children are asking different questions, are being answered differently, and some of it reaches to the other class, some of it doesn't reach. Now with e-learning, it is equally disseminating to all the children. The children are particularly listening to the question what his or her peers are asking. E-learning allowed digital education among the children, including those in rural parts also. We have to remember that, to help immensely in their future, because otherwise you see, I was seeing a data where it says that it grew substantially. My friend in this office who handles computer or IT issues, he was saying that the guy next door, he was having all laptops and all which nobody would purchase for 4,000 also. He sold everything, 10-15 laptops he sold for 15,000. That is not important, because this is separate issue that illegal profiteering can be taken care by policing. But that those laptops has reached certain homes which would have otherwise not been exposed to electronic media. To sum up, digital learning, I would say, opens up huge untapped potential in children, and effective use can open up their minds to help them harness the essence of education and also become a digital global citizen. I think.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. I'd like to introduce the flip side now. So the flip side of the coin is that, of course, the internet has brought the people together. It has created a global community, but it still lacks safety and privacy. Shuparno, sir, I would like you to share your perspective on this direction.
Safety and privacy.
There is still a lack of safety and privacy while we are on the internet. No matter how safe we feel, our private space is constantly being intruded. So what would be your take on this?
I feel that maneuvering through the World Wide Web than their parents. I am a little sort of a ham-handed when compared to my kids, when I'm looking at the internet searching for something. But I do believe that building a safe internet environment at home cannot be forced down their throats. So how exactly do we do it? I've seen people taking extreme measures, such as blocking access to internet and in fact, all that it offers, or any kind of multimedia, for that matter. I've seen people who, throw away their TVs or give them away so that the entire focus of the kids are on the exams or whatever, the studies, etc., preparations. But I'm not a votary of such measures. I feel we need to take our children into confidence, talk to them consistently about what the net can or cannot do. We need to appeal to our children's intelligence and their perception of good and bad. Right now, Sugipto sir was talking about, this entire issue of giving children that perspective on the internet and what they can do. It has, of course, I agree that it has a lot to offer, but it also, it also needs us to develop that understanding amongst our children, that there is a risk to it. We must inculcate in our children the strong belief that at the first hint of cyberbullying or cyber misdemeanor of any kind, I'm not only talking about cyber crime, but cyber misdemeanor of any kind, we, their parents, teachers also, I would say, should be their first port of call. They should not keep things to themselves. Because a humongous amount of cyber crimes, what I read all the time, happens because people are reticent to talk about these issues. Absolutely. And that is something we need to start talking to kids about. That is something we need to keep on telling them. And I don't know whether, I would in fact welcome a comment from Dr. Vipul here. What does he think about this?
So, I agree with both of you that internet has got a huge potential of learning. But let me give you a perspective of learning. Learning means that there is something in front of you, something is presented to you in a mode of some information. You scan through that information, you try to understand it, you grasp it, analyze it, and then retain it. Now the problem with internet is, as the studies have seen, that the time for which one sees a particular information has reduced. You keep skipping through the web pages. You see a link on a web page, you click on that web page, then you see another links on those two, three links on those web pages, and you from one point you deviate to some other point. And that kind of thing, actually you have a lot of information available, but you are not able to focus on that one information as readily as you used to be when you were reading a book, because that was the only information available in front of you. So learning has actually taken a beat, effective learning. So that is very important, that we learn through those e-learning modules, but at the same time we must understand that the importance of book and paper has to be there. It has to be emphasized. Absolutely. Because if we don't do it, then that knowledge which we get, and we get a lot of knowledge, even if a boy or girl is studying a lot of responsibility, is getting huge knowledge, but that knowledge needs to be analyzed, put into perspective, retained. And for that retention, one has to be on a particular frame for a longish period of time, which is possible only. It has been seen that when one is on a digital device, there are so many distractions that it is becoming difficult. So please see to it that whatever knowledge one gets, that knowledge has to be written by the person. That another thing that I am seeing in these 2 years during this pandemic, and I am seeing lot of kids having problems. They have forgotten how to write.
Precisely.
They visually click. They have been typing, but they have forgotten how to write. This might turn out to be a huge problem when schools reopen. Another thing is, because of those links, one voice from one area to another, then to another, and then keeps reading it, even if the person has got best of the intention, gets addicted to this. And that's why I say when I was discussing, some moments ago, I was saying, ensure that we are locally rooted. Ensure that we are rooted with our books, with our family, with our friends. And then we must have as much access as we can, because this is a beautiful medium, and this medium is going to stay with us.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And in fact, in practice also, in my profession, I am constantly seeing what you are saying. We have a lot of young people who come in, and exactly what you said, I'm seeing it in practice all the time. So, and in fact, aap jo keh rahe the fact of having forgotten to write. That's probably true of us also.
Yes.
So we are gradually forgetting to use the pen and paper. I don't know whether Mr. Biswas will agree with me, but yeah, ma'am, over to you, please.
This actually is a problem.
In the same string of thoughts, Biswas sir, I would like to ask you that as parents, I think the onus lies on us as well. So how can we guide and counsel our children to become responsible users and start taking onus for their own selves and make the right decision when they are using the cyberspace? How can we inculcate that, that thought inside them?
Yes, that's the most important aspect of it. You see, the best mechanism, however, could be the eye-to-eye contact. You go back to your own era. You see how your father used to look at you, and you used to forget all, nuisance and everything in your mind, and you would speak up through your eyes that I have done something wrong. Go back to that time. Install or instill that in your home, at your home. You don't need to see what your child is seeing in the, cyberspace. You look at him truly, he would say everything to you through his or her eyes. That's the medium you have to control,
With a global community-led approach, Safer Internet Day encourages everyone to come together and play their part. And I think we all agree on that. We all have our own parts to play. I'm sure this discussion has left an indelible mark on each and every one of us. I hope we can together create a safe cyberspace for our children and for the future generations to come. With this, I thank you all for joining me for this discussion. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, DPS.
Thank you.